Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Friday Morning at the Fun House alongside Mr. Martin Popoff. What's going on, Martin?
Yeah, nothing much, nothing much. It's getting cold here again in Toronto, but gonna try to get out for a run or a walk or something today. But yeah, winter's
It's
almost
cold
over.
here in New York too, man. It's like we had like a couple days ago. It was like in the upper 50s, and then like the next day there was a little bit of snow on the ground, which then was gone in like 2 hours. And now it's cold. We're gonna get some rain, and it's gonna get cold again. Then it'll probably be 90, right? So that's just
Yeah,
the way it goes here.
yeah.
So yeah, so we've got a fun show for you here today. This morphed from a very quick conversation about something sort of specific, and then Martin and I started thinking about it, and the floodgates open, and we've got tons of stuff to show and tell today. So the title of this episode is going to be "What Drives Us Nuts About Compilations, but We Love Them Anyway." And I probably screwed that up already, didn't I? What did
Yeah, I
we
think
say?
we were
Just
saying why compilations drive us nuts,
that's it.
but
Yeah,
we love them
but we
anyways.
love them anyway. Yeah. Why compilations drive us nuts, but we love them anyway. So compilation means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? A compilation is not just a greatest hits collection. It's not just a box set. It could be many, many things. So what Martin and I have done is we have found lots of these things that we have in our collections, and we've kind of put them into little categories or clumps, as we kind of were calling them a little while ago. And we're going to kind of take it from there. So we've got lots of stuff to show. So bear with us here, and hopefully we get through everything that we've got. And I'm sure as we're talking, it'll spur other ideas. But so anyway, I'll have Martin kick us off with his first little category or clump here.
Okay, so my first one is the one where I've only got one prop here to show, but it starts off the whole thing in that magic childish childhood way. One of these fantastic 22 original hits. KTEL. KTEL was a Canadian company. I don't know who did you guys get KTEL stuff there? Or did you have a
Oh,
different name under it? KTEL?
oh,
Okay.
oh, we
Because I
got
think it
kicked
was out
off.
of Winnipeg or something. Quite bizarre. But I think this captures the most magical, nostalgic meaning of compilations. These were, there were a series of them. I remember, and this one is 1973, I believe. Yeah. And most of the ones I remember as a kid were around 1973, and they were cheap and they had a lot of songs on it. So, yeah, 22 songs on this. But and this isn't the one I have the most nostalgic feel for. I can't remember what it was called. Might have been called Sound Explosion or something like that. But this is where at 10 years old you got a sample of heaviness and you realize the contrast between heaviness and these other things. So you had your tie a yellow ribbon, Tony Orlando and Dawn and Crocodile Rock and stuff like that. But the big things that we got off of this, and I'll always remember this, even if it's not on these ones, but this one happens to have two of them. This has Focus, Hocus Pocus, and the Sweet Little Willie. Right. So those were two heavy ones. And I remember Brownsville Station, Smoking in the Boys' Room. So you really got to see that contrast and you really started to see your musical shapes or your musical tastes forming off of these things against all the other pop that's across, but lots and lots of pretty rare pop and stuff on these things too. But yeah, this is where you got those and I suppose these heavy songs are just whatever they could make a cheap deal for, right? To be able to get, they had an association with the label or what. I mean, Sweets on Bell, in America, right? Brownsville Station, who knows? I mean, that's a strange business arrangement anyways. But yeah, so there you go. And that's the true nature of the compilation thing, to literally give you a sampler so you can figure out what you want to buy. And usually in most cases it's to buy of the label that you're part of here. But these were various albums. So, it sent you off in all sorts of directions.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic segue into my first choice here today. So I've got I'm a sucker. You mentioned KTEL, there was Billboard and Sound Explosion. Then later on, as a way to kind of capture all of those great albums that, like Martin just showed back from the 70s and the early 80s, we had this company called Time Life. So I, for many years, was a sucker for all these Time Life compilations. I subscribed to them, and I would go and order all these sets. I have tons of Time Life 70s and 80s music collections, right? So I decided rather than pull everything out, I pulled out I think the most recent ones that I bought, which again is going back at least 20 years. And these are the 70s music explosion sets. Wow. So we've got part one, or volume one, which is called Sunshine. And I'm not going to read every song on all these, but just so you have it. And all of them are 2-disc sets. So they try to cram as many 70s AM radio hits as they possibly can. But like Martin was saying, sometimes you get like this oddball heavy track that's in the middle of all this great pop stuff. But here you've got, Horse with No Name by America. You got I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing, remember that song? December 1963, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Summer Breeze by Seals and Croft. You got Saturday in the Park by Chicago. What else is on here? Undercover Angel, Alan O'Day. And that's the crazy thing about this, Martin. You see all these songs and you listen to all these songs on here. And you're like, I remember that. I love that song. And then you look at the name of the artist and you're like, Alan O'Day? Who the fuck is Alan O'Day? Right, but you know the song, right? It's it's crazy. Moonlight Feels Right, Le Freak by Chic. So there's that one, and they all kind of have a theme. So Sunshine, I guess these are all the bright, shiny songs. Then you got volume 2, which is called Escape, and on here you got Bad Boy Leroy Brown, Black and White by Three Dog Night, Crocodile Rock, Elton John. Here's another Drift Away by Dobie Gray. Candyman by Sammy Davis. A lot of weird stuff. I Just Want to Stop, Gino Vanelli. YMCA, The Village People. If I never hear any Village People songs ever again, I would be very happy. We got Miracles, which is volume 3. What do you think? Do you think Jefferson Starship's Miracles is on here, Martin?
I have no idea. I can't even picture that song.
No? Well, it's not on here. It should be on here, but it's not on here. Little Willie's on here.
Yeah.
You know what else is on here? Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, one of my favorite songs of all time. Love Train. All sorts of crazy stuff. And then volume 4 is just called Magic. And this is filled with stuff like Bad Blood by Neil Sedaka, The Streak by Ray Stevens, Rock Me Gently by Andy Kim, Go All the Way by the Raspberries, Magic by Pilot, right? Olivia Newton-John, all sorts of great stuff on here. So there's probably like, I would say 30 songs per set. Yeah, there's exactly 30 songs per set. So over 4 collections, you get quite a lot of stuff. But, that wasn't enough. I also have these Time Life collections of all the specific years of the 70s. So, and the crazy thing is I kept buying them, even though there's lots of repetition on all of them. But, you'll see one set that's got, there's 3 songs on that one that's not on the other set that I have. It's crazy. And then to cap it all off, here is the One Hit Wonders collection. And this is, again, 30 one-hit wonders by the likes of Wild Cherry, Play That Funky Music, Brewer and Shipley, One Take Over the Line.
Yeah. Toke.
Please Come to Boston, Dave Loggins, Ring My Bell, Anita Ward. Any of these names sound familiar? The Jaggers with the rapper. We know the songs, but have you ever, we never heard these bands again, right? That's why they're one-hit wonders. Morris Albert, Feelings. What else is on here? The Night Chicago Died. Great song. Paper Lace, right? I mean, it's just crazy when you look at the names of all these artists. You're like, Story. Well, Stories is on here. Brother Louie, right? But yeah, all sorts of crazy stuff. But yeah, I was a sucker for many years. I was a sucker for these kind of like 70s, and early 80s collections because I was a big radio guy, growing up and whatnot. So these are good to have just for nostalgia reasons. And, nobody listens to radio anymore. And even when you do listen to radio, they play the same like 50 songs over and over again. Here you get all the cool rarities and one-hit wonders and things like that you're never going to hear on any radio ever again. So there you go. That's first set.
All right. Okay, my next clump here is the genre clump. So it's the type of compilations that get you excited about a genre, get you checking out that genre. They're themed by genre. This is one of the really cool ones I got. This is a big vinyl thing called Electric Muse: The Story of Folk into Rock. And that's what the records are like in there. You pull them out and they've got all this cool album cover art. There's album 2. What we got? Like that. Are they different? Yeah, they're somewhat different, right? So yeah, this is like a 5-record set, just full of all this cool stuff like Pentangle, John Ronborn, Burt Gents, Shirley Collins, Fairport Convention, Traffic, Steel Eye Span. So that was a really cool box set in a nice firm box. And then a few really quickly that got me. I love how the liner notes are band by band in these things. You can read up on the band. So this is all Psych stuff. This is like four CDs full of Psych.
Wow.
We've got the The Rubble compilation, same sort of thing, just tons and tons of songs. Just get you, you just sit there and like it's like a big buffet table, and you're going, okay, cool, psych, and you see the the progress from garage rock into psych, and they're adding new things along the way. And then of course you've got the the legendary Nuggets box sets, which started the whole thing off, and really, this is the birth of the really well-meaning, well-done compilations in the world. And then you've got the Yes or not Yes, Supernatural Fairy Tales Progressive Rock Era box set, which just does a really good genre sampler. And then this is a cool one. So this is the heavy metal box that was done by Rhino. And I got to write all the liner notes for every track by track thing on here. And I think I even got some say in what tracks went on it. But at this point, it was a fond memory, because at this point, I just got on that Rhino train a little. There's the whole Time Life train that I know people have written a lot of those liner notes, and I almost got on that train, but just somehow it fell through. But yeah, so I did this box set. I did a Testament comp, Dio comp, which I got a gold record for. Wendy sent me. I did a Montrose comp, all around this time, which was kind of cool. But yeah, so that's the booklet in that thing. And a few different people wrote various kinds of liner notes, but every track by track liner note I did in that one.
Thank you for that upside down view, Martin.
Was that upside down? Yeah. Okay. Half the time I'm worried about staying on mic, right? Because this mic I have to be really close for, right? So it's showing stuff is always a little tricky. But yeah, this has an actual volume knob on it.
Yeah, that's an awesome box
in a little amp, right?
Yeah,
and yeah, it's actually a really good survey. Like I say, I think because I helped do the tracks, but just dropping down, making sure you're hitting all the marks as well as you can in however many disc box set this is. So yeah, that's the genre thing where you're just essentially, I want to immerse myself in this, and then you go elsewhere. When you like a comp, you find stuff that you like, and you go want to play more stuff by those bands. But the cool thing is across most of these, like these psych ones, for example, so many of those were only singles anyways. You're never going to get it any other way. So you feel like you've got the legitimate version of it anyways, because you're not going to be out there collecting all the 45s of it. So it's really useful too.
Yeah, I've been wanting to pull the trigger on those if they're even still available. Those out of print, or those still around?
Which ones are you talking about?
The two psych sets.
Well, the Nuggets 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet they're still in print, because they're very famous, right? These other ones are a little sketchier. I mean, one of them's literally a Mojo magazine thing, and Rubble collection is pretty sketch. But I imagine these are. I mean, they're Rhino. Whoa, my camera's falling over here. Hang on. There we go. So these are good Warner Rhino things. Liner notes by Lenny Kaye. Remember, that was one of the big famous things about amazing liner notes, right? So yeah, I have a feeling these probably never went out of print. I may be wrong about that, but I bet they're still around.
Yeah, I've been kind of considering that. So we'll see. All right, so moving on to my next clump, the live compilation, and I've got two different sort of live compilation. I think they're both really cool. So the one is more a compilation of live tracks or concerts that span like a number of years. Right. And there are things like this great audio diary 2014 to 2018 from King Crimson, which is a multi-disc set that has live tracks from those 4 years of the band being out on the road, which is really cool. And these, each one has its own little thing in there. There's that. Then you've got something kind of similar. So this is like a kind of like live compilation of stuff from Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band from 75 to 85, which some may argue is the high point of Springsteen's career. And again, you got 3 discs of all sorts of live stuff from that 10-year span. Kind of along similar lines, you have Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, the live anthology. Again, a great compilation of live stuff all from throughout his career. We're spanning decades here across 4 discs. That's really cool stuff, because you get to see these bands like over a period of time on how their set lists evolve, and the different songs played live by different lineups and things like that. And then you have which I think is really cool, and this is kind of like they've been doing this a lot of late, And we've got the new Thin Lizzy Live and Dangerous, which just came out, which I haven't gotten yet, but where they take like a historic live album, which was recorded over a short period of time and culled from various concerts, and then they give you the whole kit and caboodle, and you get all the concerts that the classic live album was taken from. So this is Hendrix, Songs for Groovy Children, which is basically the Hendrix and the Band of Gypsies album. They played over a whole weekend at the Fillmore East at the end of 1969, New Year's Eve weekend. And this is the entire, all the shows from that weekend. We've got Frank Zappa and the Mothers, Roxy and Elsewhere. This is Roxy, the complete performances. So again, the Roxy and Elsewhere album is taken from performances over an entire couple of days. I think it was also a weekend. So here they have the whole weekend's worth of performances. And last but not least, we've got UFO Strangers in the Night. Okay, so we've got the classic live album. Now here are all of the different shows that those performances were taken from. So you've got, Chicago and Wisconsin, Youngstown, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, Columbus, Kentucky, blah, 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 blah. So here you have more Strangers in the Night than you ever thought you needed. So these are kind of cool too. And my guess is we're probably going to see a lot more of these because I think a lot of this stuff is actually in the vault. So don't be surprised over the next couple of years you start to see more like this. And you've got the new Live and Dangerous by Thin Lizzy, which is out now. So there you go.
Cool. Excellent. Okay. Okay, my next category is the band category. So this is literally just compilations by band, but I find these to be very useful. And again, the idea here is that these are rarities that you would have to go out and buy all the 45s to get. Or, assorted, you'd have to get every sort of like reissue with the bonus tracks on it. And then a lot of stuff isn't available at all. But I really like the job they did with the Genesis archive, the two that go together. And me being that Genesis fan with terrible taste who likes the later stuff, and not the very latest, but the mid later stuff. I love this one a lot. Archive 2 is just endlessly entertaining with synthy drums and synth sounds and stuff like that. Really cool stuff on that. But it's amazing how much good stuff they have there. And this is a good famous early one, the Uriah Heep one, Time of Revelation, where you get, this band had some cracking B-sides, like songs that were not included. And this is famous for them spelling it Uriah Heep on the spine. Look at that, eh? Nice, eh?
Oops.
Yeah.
Fire that QC guy.
Yeah. So this is 4 discs and it's just packed with rarities. Very cool. And then, just another one along that lines, which was really good, was the Alice Cooper one. The Ozzy one's good too, right? But the Alice Cooper Life and Crimes. So, the Ozzy one, the Aerosmith one, and this Alice Cooper. Not the Ozzy one, I guess, but the other two are good for doing that thing where they give you like the early 45s by their garage band versions, and stuff like that comes in, right? So those are always entertaining. So they're box sets that you feel like if you're a completist, you're going to have to get these things because so much of this stuff isn't available at all. Some of it's 45, some of it's bonus tracks, blah, 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 live material that came off bootlegs. So you get some of that as well. So yeah, it's a great form of compilation. And really you didn't particularly get anything nearly this good back in the vinyl era for these things. This is with the golden era of box sets, right? So
yeah, so it's all 90s stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were coming out with some really good box sets in the 90s. All right, so I figured one of my categories or clumps should be the traditional, like, compilation set, right? So this is basically best of or an anthology or whatnot. And in some cases, with me anyway, the anthology is so good that I never felt the need to go and buy anything else in the catalog. Now, I've talked plenty of times on the channel here where that has backfired on me many times. I'll go out and buy like an anthology or a collection or something like that, or a greatest hits set. And I love the stuff so much that I go out and I get all the rest of the stuff and I get rid of the compilations. Well, in these cases, I actually had not done that for various reasons. So here we've got a really cool Boz Scaggs like anthology set. To me, has all the Boz Scaggs I ever need. It's got tons of stuff on here, some live stuff, some rare stuff. I think this is a example of something really, really cool. Here's one. I own everything by these guys, but I kept this compilation here. It's Wingspan, Paul McCartney and Wings, Wingspan. Again, you've got all the mandatory stuff. There's some rarities on here, some B-sides, some non-album tracks, which you really can't find anywhere else. So I kept this. This is just really, really good. Here is the Yardbirds Ultimate. Again, lots of stuff here. 2 discs jam-packed with so much material because, again, we're talking late 60s material here. All the songs are like, what, 2.5 minutes long, 3 minutes max, so you can cram as much stuff on here. There's probably like almost 60 songs on here. All right, and again, covering all the different little eras of the Yardbirds. This is a great Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers anthology. Not only does it have every hit on here and every really strong deep album cut, you got some rarities on here, you got some live stuff on here, a couple of single releases that never made it to albums. I own the entire Tom Petty collection, but I'm not getting rid of this because this is just so good the way it's presented. And then last but not least, in my opinion, one of the greatest hits collections of all time, ABBA Gold. 19 classic ABBA tracks. I don't need to buy any of their albums. Everything I want from ABBA is right here, starting with Dancing Queen, ending with Waterloo, and everything in between. So just classic stuff. So yeah, that's the traditional like anthology or compilation or greatest hit set.
Yeah. You know, and the other neat thing, like I have no idea what the essays are like in the Yardbirds or Boz Scaggs, but it's like, you know, you get that one nice, well-written essay that tells you, why should I like Boz Scaggs, right? Okay, yeah. Right now I have no idea why, but, you know, if you tell me some really smart things and you sound like a smart music guy and you say, listen for that, listen for that, listen for that, you all of a sudden, okay, I'm buying in. I'm now want to hear that. I'm now curious. And then you get the track by track stuff. Yeah, nice. Yeah.
It's a great book.
Yeah. And the track by track stuff, you learn like, you know, slight, you know, here's the guest stars on it, slight variations of this, and listen for this. And this was done mono, and, you know, they had to put the harmonica back in and all that stuff. And you go, oh, okay. So it's a great, it's a great academic exercise that makes you focus on those songs that otherwise might have just flown by. Right.
100%. Yep. Yeah. Well put. Yep.
Another funny thing, I had to look up the Doobie Brothers on Wiki yesterday, that for the usual curse of the reason a book writer has to do that. It's like, oh man, do I put the Doobie Brothers? Do I put just Doobie Brothers? Do I put a capital T on the, you know? So I'm constantly having to look up bands and making that decision, right? You know, Ramones, New York Dolls, I had to do both of those. They don't get a the, or Ramones doesn't anyways. Anyway, so I looked up Doobie Brothers and I thought, okay, well, this every time I do that, I go, well, this is my opportunity to see how many gold and platinum records they have and stuff. Right? Oh, okay, well, that's pretty cool. You get to the compilations, they got Best of Doobie Brothers. That thing's a diamond album.
Yeah.
They've got a diamond album, the Doobie Brothers. I had no idea. So I just saw that yesterday. So
and that's the one that was released in what, like 76 or 77?
Yeah, I think it's got a picture of a jukebox on the cover.
Yeah. That came out before their biggest album, surprisingly enough.
It's unbelievable, right? Yeah. So there's the power of compilations. But okay, my next category is fond memories of the punk compilation thing. And unfortunately, I couldn't find the ones I wanted to show the best because I have a problem with compilations in my vinyl. I've got my vinyl's gotten a little bit disorganized, but I used to put it under V for various artists. So I had a pile of comps under V. And then I one day decided, I'm going to put compilations at the end after Z or Z, right? Sort of thing. So that I'm missing 2 of my favorite ones. So I'll mention those first, or 3 of them I can't find. Live at the Roxy. I think it came out in 77. So it's just these raw punk bands right there at the Roxy in 77. It's a UK album, never came out in Canada, probably never came out in the States. Another one right at that time that I got was the French New Rose punk. New Rose is on it by the Damned. That's the first time I heard that. Blew my mind. It's got a little picture of Stiv Bators from the Dead Boys on the cover. That was amazing. And then I got this other really cool one called Streets, which is illustrated by the guy who does the illustrations in Clash Sandinista. And that thing is just stuffed full of rarities, rare 45s. So those are my 3 favorite fond memories of punk compilations. But then I found these as well. We've got Boston's Live at the Rat. And we've got a Max's Kansas City one.
Oh, wow.
And there's a CBGB double album one too. And I think this Boston one, yeah, this Boston one is a double. Look at that. All these just bands that never went nowhere kind of thing. Cool cover on it. But the funny thing about the Live at the Rat, the Max's Kansas City, and the CBGB is they're all terrible. They're not very punky. They're not very heavy. They're kind of like these pub rocky bands generally. It's very wishy washy, but all three of them are really crappy albums. But yeah, so that's a great category for me because again, early on, right in '77, the bands were coming out with their own albums, but I just remember getting some amazing punk compilations. There you go.
Cool. Yeah, they're probably really cool to have, but it's interesting that they're not that good, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
still, I guess they're noteworthy for all the wrong reasons. All right, I got to grab something here, Martin, real
Okay.
quick, just because I decided that one of these artists that I'm going to show in this next set, which I'm going to kind of call the odds and sods compilations, right? So these are these collections by from a specific band of like B-sides, alternate tracks, live stuff, unreleased songs. I mean, just whatever they have in the vaults or stuff they recorded before they were actually called the band that they're famous for, that sort of thing. So we've got, Deep Purple's got this really cool one here, which has just got all sorts of stuff on it. It's called Singles and EP Anthology 68 to 80. All sorts of crazy stuff on here, stuff that didn't make the album. And many of these songs made it onto like reissues and remasters of many of their various albums. But you got stuff on here like, Painted Horse is on here, and When a Blind Man Cries, and Demon's Eye, and all that kind of stuff. But you also get like Hallelujah's on here, and various different live takes and things like that. So for the Deep Purple kind of collector and fanatic and completist, you got to have something like this.
I've got that nice Warner one that is long form like this with the kind of metal stamping on it. That's sort of the same thing. I can't remember how many discs it was, but yeah, you found out there were some good Joe Lynn Turner songs, right? That did make the albums and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff on here. It's Marillion, B-sides themselves. So here, this is a lot of kind of cool, again, non-album tracks, early tracks before they released Script for a Jester's Teal. This has, the big epic Grendel is on here. It's got Chart in the Single, Market Square Heroes, Cinderella Search, Freaks, Tucson, all sorts of cool stuff. We've got the Uriah Heep, the Lansdowne tapes. So this is the stuff that they were recording. It's called From Spice to Uriah Heep. So this is really, really cool stuff. Really, really early versions of stuff. Late Spice stuff, early Uriah Heep stuff by the very, very early lineup of the band. So that's really, really cool. And then the band that probably, for me, best exemplifies what I'm talking about here, and that's Jethro Tull. So probably one of the great early odds and sods sets, and I should mention the Who because the Who coined that phrase early on. But we've got Living in the Past, which is the granddaddy of odds and sods. So this was an early album release from them, but basically made up of singles and non-album tracks and things like that. So it's a compilation of weird stuff and some stuff that made it onto their early albums. They, much later on in the early 90s, put out this great set called Nightcap, which basically is almost like Living in the Past Part 2. So here you have on the first disc, you have the entire early recordings of the Passion Play album before it was called Passion Play, recorded at a different studio, which Ian and the band decided to scrap and redo the whole album, which became Passion Play. But the early version of what was that album is, in my opinion, arguably even better. It's called the Chateau Disaster tapes because they recorded at the Chateau de Hueraville Studios, however the hell you pronounce that. And then the second disc is, again, all sorts of other unused songs that didn't make it onto various Jethro Tull albums. So this is like, when this came out, it was like mind-blowing that there was all this stuff in the vaults that they never used. And then like in the years since that, the band's been putting out these box sets, which basically they give you the regular album, the original album with in many cases, a Steven Wilson remix. Then you get all sorts of associated recordings, things that didn't make the album, stuff that you hadn't heard before that didn't pop up on things like this or this. And then you get live recordings, you get live video, live audio, all sorts of stuff. I mean, these have become, like, to me, the ultimate compilation releases. And they've got, all the way up to, what was the last one they did? Was we've got Broadsword and the Beast is the next one to come out. I think that's sometime this year. So, and all the albums before that have this kind of compilation release. And, you know, again, you get all the stuff in here. You get the, you know, an amazing booklet with all the information you'll ever want to know about that album, the band lineup at the time and whatnot. So yeah, amazing stuff. So that's my next one.
Cool. Wicked. Okay. My last one is the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart, my favorite one. So the new wave of British heavy metal compilations. You know, I'm a couple of them I'm missing here, but I'm going to show a few here. So the ones I'm missing that I can't find, or maybe I don't have anymore, are the MCA Brute Force one. That was amazing. The Friday Night Rock Show. What was that other live one? So my two favorites would be Metal for Mothers Volume 2, which I only have on CD. But this is famous for having Trespass on here twice, and they're both amazing songs. But you've got Zero, Dark Star, their best song, White Spirit, Horsepower, Chevy, The Raid. So The Raid and Red Alert, some real rarities. My second favorite one was this one, Logo Records, New Electric Warriors, where you've got Turbo, Buffalo, Tarot, Bastille, Oxum, Dawn Watcher, Silverwing, Rab Stallion, Colossus, Jedediah Strut. So all total rarities on that. There's kind of the granddaddy of them all, Metal for Mothers 1. So this came out, I think this came out like February of 80. So this is right at the beginning, famous for having Maiden on here twice. And they get the first track, they get Sanctuary and Wrathchild. And you've got a crushingly heavy Angel Witch song in Baphomet, which wasn't on the album. It's a few real weird things like Blues in A by Toad the Wet Sprocket, Capture City, Praying Mantis, Nuts, Bootleggers. So this is where they weren't quite sure what this movement was going to be about. And there's a little bit of messiness to it. You've got a not great Samson song in Tomorrow or Yesterday. Ethel the Frog Fight Back is amazing, but a stupid band name. So yeah, this one's very eclectic. And then the one people forget about is they had the Mother's Pride EP in the middle, and it only has 4 tracks. You got Wildfire, Quartz with a non-LP track, White Spirit, and Baby Jane. And then, so 2 others I never owned, which are very expensive. Most of these are pretty expensive now.
I was going to say, yeah.
The ones I'm going to show here are the real expensive ones, but I only have them on CD. But Green Metal, Belfast Rocks, those were 2 big ones. But these were super crazy expensive. Scene of the Crime, Rock Snacks, and Rock's Caliber. You've got some Guardian Records stuff here. So you've got the likes of Saracen, Samurai, and Hollow Ground. Hollow Ground was one of the amazing bands here. I've reviewed, these are all reviewed in my that Smoke and Valves that's got the 900 reviews. I call it 900 records, but of course most of them are 45s. But I was going to pull it out because I wanted to see what was on Brute Force and stuff, but I forgot. But yeah, every one of these comps is reviewed in there. But we've got Rock's Caliber, Black Rose, Brands Hatch, Battle Axe, Satan, Marauder. More Black Rose. Not so great on that one. Scene of the Crime was really good. You had Savage, Manitou, Sparta, Tyrant, Panzer Division. Panzer Division was one of these good underrated ones. So yeah, lots of these, they were usually based on what label it was on. But the ones that just got you all completely fired up about this whole thing were Metal for Mothers 1, Metal for Mothers 2, Brute Force, and New Electric Warriors. Those were the ones I remember just crammed full of royalties. You saw it was a movement because there were all these 45s that weren't out. So yeah, that's my fondest memory of the compilation thing.
And so many of those bands on those compilations just never made it anywhere, which is kind of sad, right? So that's the best place to go to get a sampling of all of those. Good stuff. All right. My last, I don't even have a category name for this because this is just kind of like a collection of weird stuff. So here's a compilation from a Canadian band that actually is a live album. However, what they did for this live album is, I'll go back a little bit. So the band Saga, on all of their albums, always had one song listed as a chapter as chapter 1 through, God, I don't even know when how high up it went, 16, I guess, whatever. But they were always listed haphazardly throughout all their albums, so they were never in any kind of sequence. So what they decided to do many years later, in fact, this was what, 2005 or something like that, they decided to play a concert where they were going to play all of the chapters songs in the actual sequence that they are numbered as. So here, this is it right here, called the Chapters Live. And this is basically, the track list. So you got, Images, chapter 1, Don't Be Late, chapter 2, you're going to know all these songs. It's Time, chapter 3, Will It Be You, chapter 4, No Regrets, chapter 5, blah, 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 so on and so forth, all the way up to Worlds Apart, which is chapter 16. Pretty cool to hear them all in order. And I'm wondering if the band like ever planned on doing it this way, or is it just some kind of clever little thing they did throughout their career to do these so-called chapter things. And then at one point they're like, why don't we just play them all in order at some point? Why not? Really cool stuff. One of the great compilations of all time, I think, is Metallica's Garage Inc. And this is the double disc version. Again, all these really cool covers that Metallica did of all sorts of really interesting stuff. You got new wave of British heavy metal stuff on here, punk, classic rock, all sorts of things. That's really cool. When I was growing up as a kid, this was probably my favorite. It's more of a soundtrack, but to me, it's still a compilation of all sorts of really cool live and in studio recordings of The Who. The Kids Are All Right. In fact, a lot of these versions from this set are some of my favorite versions of some of these songs. Here's an interesting one. Yes released this thing called Keys Studio. So they had Keys to Ascension 1 and Keys to Ascension 2, which were two late 90s live albums from the band. And at the end of each live album, they recorded 2 or 3 new studio tracks, right? So then what they did years later is they decided to release a compilation of just the studio tracks. And that's what you get here. So you get Footprints, Be the One, Mind Drive, Bring Me to the Power, Sign Language, That Is, and Children of the Light, which to me, I'd rather just have this, because I all those live songs, I've heard those live. I've heard live versions of those songs forever, and I don't need to ever listen to those again. But these are really, really cool. And then this next group here, I guess you could say this belongs in the odds and sods, sort of, but Gentle Giant has so many compilations of things that I had to kind of include them on their own. So here we've got Under Construction, which again, they also have a release called Scraping the Barrel, which if you're familiar with the term scraping the barrel, that means whatever's little bits left on the bottom, we're going to give it to you. Well, Gentle Giant has like made a latter part of their career. I mean, they haven't been a band for 40 plus years, but you've got all sorts of alternate takes and versions and this, that, and the other thing. More like obscure Gentle Giant stuff than you'll ever need. They've got like a handful of those type of releases, and then there's something that they put out a couple of years ago, which is called 3-Piece Suite, which gives you remixes of what they can find from the original 3 album master tapes. You get Steven Wilson remixes, you get original mixes, you get on a Blu-ray, you get all sorts of other stuff, get instrumental versions of tracks. Again, Gentle Giant, notable for doing this over the last like 20-30 years, just giving you whatever they can find in their archives, they release it. So yeah, that's all I got.
Okay, I've got a couple honorable mention categories, which I'll go quick through. So yeah, remember the old big live festival albums, right? So you've got Cal Jam 2. So that's kind of cool, where you get, here you've got Aerosmith, Frank Marino, Hart, Ted Nugent, Santana, Dave Mason. So Cal Jam. And then this is a cool one, that Disastrous Pop Festival down, and I think this is Puerto Rico, right? But the neat thing is I've had John Nitzinger and guys from Cactus tell me about this concert, what a crazy situation it was. So this is Mary Saul. So yeah, there's those. And then another neat last category was the idea of these isolated rarities. So these are both, well, okay, I'll tell one quick story first. So in Canada here, there's this rare kind of prog power metal band called Rapid Tears. And it's like, okay, they made one indie album. I think they got an indie EP, But to get the full catalog, you had to get that one compilation that had the one Rapid Tears song on it, right? And I remember there was there are these compilations that are put together by radio stations, and I'm pretty sure there's one of these that's got like a rare old early Twisted Sister song on it, so the completists needed that. Definitely, I can remember one that had Quiet Riot, Slick Black Cadillac on it. That you needed that. But yeah, just a couple other funny ones are the Summer Days comp, which gave you Blue Oyster Cult Power Underneath Despair early before Heaven Forbid came out. So this drove Blue Oyster Cult fans pretty wild. It's just a CMC comp with Foghat, Pat Travers, Blue Oyster Cult, John Kay, and Steppenwolf. I think it's a mix of live and studio. But on the Blue Oyster Cult front, there was this old thing, Electroc, the 60s, the Jack Holzman years, right? And mine is this weird cassette box set. So this is actually looks like this. Nice booklet in it. There you go. 2 cassettes. Wow. The cool thing about this is that, again, on the Blue Oyster Cult tip, this gave you the Stock Forest Group, Arthur Comics, which is pre-Blue Oyster Cult, and nobody got that for years and years and years. Tons of weird, crazy rarities on here that I'm sure some of this stuff is properly rare. But yeah, I mean, it's got cassette 4 or side 4, I guess. This is pretty cool. It's got 5 MC5 songs followed by, and side B is 5 Stooges songs. So that's kind of cool for a comp. So executive producer Lenny Kaye. So there's your link to Nuggets. So I wish I had this on vinyl instead. Cassettes is kind of weird, but so there's that sort of thing. And then, the last weird component of this is there are comps that are somewhat famous simply because they happen to have a Black Sabbath song on it, or a Led Zeppelin song, or a Nick Drake song, right? And just seeing that front cover with all those band names and Led Zeppelin, that's really cool, right? It's just kind of a cool thing, right? And it's not even a rare song or anything, but it's a comp that has that little extra bit of cachet because, well, the Led Zeppelin collectors obviously all need to have a copy of this sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool as well. So there you go. There's your isolated rarities category.
Martin, if you could pull that Marty Soul thing again. I mean, I want people to take a look at that lineup there. Look at that. Allman Brothers, John Baldry, Cactus, Dr. John, Jonathan Edwards, ELP, Jay Giles, B.B. King, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Herbie Mann, Nitzinger, and Osibisa. What an eclectic lineup. So what do they have, like one track from each band represented?
There's the gate.
Look at that, Osibisa.
Yeah, so there were all kinds of like crazy, lot of drug taking and maybe water problems, transportation problems, helicopters, all this sort of stuff. I'm just looking on the back here to answer your question. Yeah, it looks essentially one track from everybody kind of thing. Yeah. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Take a Pebble, Lucky Man. So I guess that's 2. Nitzinger, Texas Blues, Jelly Roll. I guess that's 2. Jonathan Edwards, Sometimes in the Morning, 2. And a lot of other ones 1. So yeah, I've just I can't remember the stories, but I definitely a couple people have gone to this thing have told me some pretty interesting stuff about what happened. So in fact, isn't this the one that Black Sabbath was supposed to go to and they canceled, right?
It might be. What year was that? Was that like mid-70s?
Oh yeah, this is like 72 or something. 72 is the album. Yeah, recorded April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 72. Okay. Mary Sol Festival, Puerto Rico. Yeah.
Wow.
Great.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were for a couple of years after Woodstock. I mean, they were trying to recreate the magic of Woodstock everywhere. And, believe it or not, I mean, Puerto Rico was kind of like a little hotbed for rock music there for a while. You wouldn't think so, but they were doing lots of stuff like that down there. Yeah, it's very cool. I'm totally like enamored with the history of like rock festivals and music festivals in general. I think they're like such a cool topic of discussion. So anyway. Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it, everybody. So some interesting compilations. Some of these
Pete, one day when you're bored, you should reorganize your music collection and put all those festival live albums together and see what you've got, right? Yeah. And I'm sure there's someone who collects all these things, right? And has them in these various categories, eh?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, one of these days, Martin.
Yeah.
One of these days when I have some extra time, I could do something like that. It might be kind of fun, right?
Have you ever heard of that prank? I've never seen it done, but I've heard somebody tell me they did this. But you've gone to a buddy's house and he's not home and he's not going to be home for a whole bunch of hours. And you take his entire CD collection, pull out all the CDs, and put them all back in the wrong jewel cases and file it all back on the wall.
Oh my God, that would be like the worst thing ever. Oh.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? Especially if you're someone who's meticulous about where you put everything in alphabetical and by genre or whatever. Oh my God, that would be the worst thing you could ever do to a friend. I would never talk to that person again if they did that to me. Oh
I've heard people organize their collections by year, like chronologically throughout, and by genre. I've got it a little bit by genre, but I've heard people do that before as well. So by year would be a pretty funny one, right? Just see everything lined up by year,
Yeah, but it would be it still would be too hard to find stuff. Because I mean, if you have 500 CDs from 1971, then but then are you going to go as far as to put them by release date? But then you got to go research everything before you go find it. It's like, I want to listen to Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. What month did that come out? I don't know. Let me go on Wikipedia, find it. All right, let me go to the shelf. Here we go. March, April, May. Yeah. No thanks. No thanks. I like it just the way I have it. I know where everything is for the most part. For the most part. So, all right, Martin, what's going on? Any new books in stock? Things working on?
Not particularly. MartinPopoff.com for all that stuff. The two reprints that are still selling well, the Merciful Fate and the Flaming Telepath Blue Oyster Cult thing. We've got the Contrarian show. I've got a new one coming up going on today. In fact, you inspired it. Our last episode, our Glam episode inspired this. So I'm going to do this crazy show. So I basically built the greatest UK British glam album out of the Alice Cooper catalog, because you made that comment, say, oh, you can make a great glam album out of this. It's like, boom. So I did it. So that goes up today, Contrarians. And then I've got the audio podcast, History in 5 Songs, 191 episodes now.
Cool. Wow. So any plans for the big 200th episode?
No idea yet. No idea, but I should come up with something special. So
yeah.
Did
you probably haven't watched it because it only went live last night, but we did our 100th episode of In the Prague Seat, which went live yesterday.
Oh,
which was the part 2 of the famous Louis Nasser from the hospital bed.
I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
So that went up last night. It was good. It was good. Maybe not quite the drop dead classic that the first episode was, but it was close. It was fun. It was a good time. So. Cool. All right, there you have it, everybody. Thanks for watching another episode of Friday Morning at the Funhouse. Coming up here on the channel, we've got, this weekend, we've got ranking the albums coming up on Sunday. Chris Canzanieri from the Hudson Valley Squares and myself will be ranking the albums of Baroness. So that's coming up on Sunday. And then we've got the Hudson Valley Squares coming up on Monday. We've got a pretty cool episode planned. We are going to, and I've had various viewers ask for this topic. So basically what we've done, we've picked out 15 classic songs that have a very notable, obviously the studio version, and have a very notable live version from their classic live album. So we're going to be going through all these 15 songs, and we're going to have the panel pick which is their favorite version of these classic songs, the studio track or the live track. So that'll be coming up on Monday. It should be loads of fun. And then we also have the Monsters Den next week. And right next, yes, that's right. Oh, and don't forget, we've got the UK Connection coming up on tomorrow on Saturday, so stay tuned for that as well. Stephen Reed and Simon Bray and myself doing another fun show. So till then, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts, and please do hit the like button before you leave. So have a great weekend. For Martin Popoff and myself, we'll see you all here next Friday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.